and welcome to episode 48 of the Racing Line podcast. Here on Monday evening, the night after the Austrian Grand Prix at the what is it? Red Bull Ring. Spielberg, the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah.
So tonight we're coming to you with a little bit of information about, obviously, our opinions on the MotoGP from last night's race. We'll talk a little bit about Sunday morning's race, which was the Iowa 500 that took place in St. Louis in IndyCar.
The Bommarito 500.
Yep, 2 races to go in the IndyCar Championship. It keeps getting closer and closer, so we'll have a bit of a deep dive into IndyCar as well. And then we'll also preview the second half of the Formula One season and what it means for the next couple of rounds of the championship. So Harry, Joe, thanks for jumping on. I'll say the same thing I say every week. How you going? How was your week?
Very well, mate. How was yours?
Phenomenal.
I'm just excited for some Formula One to be back, mate.
Yep. It's been
a minute.
It's weird. It's because we've probably said only a handful of good things about it all year, but when you lose it for a couple of weeks, you are a little bit puzzled for things to do on a Sunday night.
You know what else though?
Because even Chelsea lost the lead this week, so it was a very lean weekend.
I'm not saying anything until tomorrow.
Yeah, it might be a
long weekend.
It might be anyway. Let's jump straight into it, boys. We'll begin with the MotoGP that took place, like we said, in Austria over the weekend. If you haven't watched it, we'll give you the top 3. It was Pecco Bagnaia bouncing back again to take the win. Fabio Quartararo in second. When a little bit before halfway through the race, he was sitting as low as 8th, and was able to charge through to second. And then Aussie Jack has kind of found some real consistency and came home a close 3rd. So, Joseph, we kind of said that Pecco needed some help from the Ducati boys to kind of bring the championship back into his favour. Halfway through the race, the championship differential was down to 24 points, and then it kind of slowly crept back out as Quartararo made his way through the field. But what did you make of the race, buddy?
I thought it was a fascinating race. About halfway through, I got a bit worried when it looked like that the tire situation that Pecco and Jack had gone for seemed to be the wrong one. I mean, if you think about it, it's probably one of the better races of the year, to be honest. And there wasn't really that much passing in it. I did think at one stage that we were going to get a Ducati train that would really give Quartararo some problems, and even the Aprilias looked really good in the opening stages of that race. But sort of bit by bit, the sort of cards fell and people fell by the wayside. I mean, Bastianini was first with his serious brake fade problem he had when he just had no brakes coming into the
apparently it was a deflating tire. It wasn't even a brake issue. Crafer said it was a deflating tire that actually
even scarier, I'd say then. But that actually looked pretty scary until it somehow magically sort of pulled up just before the air fence. Because as he was going across the gravel, I was like, man, that's not slowing down anytime soon. What did you think of the race? Because I thought Quartararo put in a masterful performance that sort of speaks to his.
I think the first thing I noticed was traditionally Jack Miller is a hard tire guy and it bites him in the butt. So then when I saw the tire choices for this weekend and him and Pecco had gone for the softer option, it kind of just surprised me a little bit because they always tend to be a little bit more conservative just with the way the Ducati operates. And choose its tires up. So that was interesting, and it kind of seemed to play out in towards the back end of the race that the harder compounds we saw with Martin and with Quartararo just seemed to have a little bit more edge to them.
Even Zarco, if you were looking at his lap times throughout the race. Yeah,
true. But the most interesting thing for me, I thought, was we had that Ducati dominance in the first half of the race. I counted in that first half, there was 7 out of the top 11 were Ducatis.
Yeah.
It was just like, I think Mir, Quartararo and
Not even.
the
It
two,
was
and the two
it was
Aprilia boys.
the two Aprilias, Rins, because me crashed on the first lap,
So they were
and
dominating
Binder.
it. I think the biggest thing that probably let the Ducati boys down was the new safety chicane that they've put on the second straight, because before that, that is an uphill climb, pulling all gears to get to the top of it and then braking, and then all of a sudden we've kind of cut that in half and put a very nimble chicane through it, so that whole section of the track now has probably come back to the rest of the field as opposed to being like a Ducati circuit, because it doesn't have the same super long straight that it used to anymore.
I mean, they
And
still
then
looked pretty dominant though.
yeah, they did. I mean, it was
Just
it was
not as
interesting because
dominant.
I think the whole race, Quatter was faster than the two boys that in the front, the two Ducati boys. But with that with that bike, particularly when you've got Bagnaia on it, Quartararo can get to the back of them, but then getting past them is another thing entirely. And even the pass that he made on Miller into the chicane came out of
Ballsy.
nowhere. Yeah,
And
it was
ballsy.
extreme ballsy. Like he probably very easily could have binned it himself, but it was like that's how desperate he was to make the move, because any other part of the track just wasn't going to give him any yield. So yeah, I think the new track was interesting. I kind of like that it's got a chicane there, because it kind of gives a very simple track another element to it. I think I was even thinking it could even add another element to Formula One
F1 race.
if F1 was to race there moving forward and to use it too. But it was a good race. I think Bagnaia has done everything he needs to do, but unluckily for him, Quartararo was still awesome. So
I feel like one of the more unfortunate things in that race was due to Bastianini's tire deflating. He came out of the what is it now, the fourth corner,
yeah,
and he fully turned sideways, and Zarco, who was coming I think fourth at the time or fifth,
yeah,
had to take evasive action and lost about 4 or 5 spots.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if those two bikes had sort of stayed in the way,
they still
Quartararo
would have had
he would have had a much harder problem getting through. But man,
the other problem was the Aprilias seemed to fade as well, and the Aprilias were giving him a bit of a run for his money early in the race, and then they kind of seemed to fade as well. And we knew that going into the race, so we're talking their chances down pretty much all weekend. But once Aprilia started fading and he was able to kind of get to the back, like the fact that the top 4 for most of the race were tripping over each other as well, just kept Quatter in the box seat to make a move whenever something happens. So the most exciting thing for me is the fact that Bagnaia keeps taking it to him, and if he's able, like, there's going to be more races where Ducati does well, and I'm sure that there'll be races where he can kind of pull a bigger gap. But he just needs to keep going. He needs to keep going to bring the championship back to him, because right now I think it's still could be 40 points right now.
It's 40 points.
Yeah.
So it's still what, 8? It's 8 races of winning and him coming second, which I don't know even know if there's that many left.
Well, there might even be only 6 or 7 races. What he needs is to get a win, and he needs Quartararo not to finish on the podium. Yeah. And then all of a sudden if the championship's within one race, and then there's the pressure of falling, which kind of plays tricks on people as it is. If that's kind of there, then the championship's still on. And I think the fact that Aleix was able to finish, I think in 4th at the end, or 6th, kept him, I think maybe
30 points behind.
30 points behind. So there's still pressure from Aleix as well. But interesting race. I wouldn't say it was the most enthralling, but it felt long because it's such a short circuit.
It did feel
very
long.
Like a long race. 28 laps, but it took a long time to wind down.
Yeah. What do you think of the news about Tech 3 and the gas branding coming on board next year? Because I thought it was about time that sort of KTM brought another one of their brands into the sport, since it's pretty much free marketing for them.
The interesting thing for me was like we'd been hearing for a number of years that Husqvarna was likely to become the brand for the Tech 3 team. And we've seen Husqvarna in the Moto 3. I don't know if they've got a Moto 2 team, and I think kind of Gas very quickly had the Aspar Moto 3 and the Aspar Moto 2 team. So it made sense for KTM just to kind of shift the branding to Gas as opposed to Husqvarna, because they did have the stepping stone from Moto 3 into MotoGP. But yeah, I think it's cool. Like, it's always good to have a new brand. It's obviously the same technology as the KTM, but yeah, why not? Why not have
One thing I'm interested in now is to see if we're gonna like, so KTM have their own Moto 3, Moto 2, Moto, and then MotoGP team, so it sort of has its own little academy. I would like to see though if the Gas sort of family now will use that academy independently. I was hearing news over the weekend that about Remy Gardner and his whole seat situation.
He came out today and said that he's all but expecting not to be in the grid next year. That was from today.
I saw that. So what does he do moving forward?
World Superbike probably is the most realistic,
logical one.
Yeah.
Is that like moving from Formula One to Indy? Like, what's the kind of
pretty
comparison?
Much. That's exactly
it. Okay.
Oh, you know what? It's probably a better jump than that. Yeah, it's probably from moving from Formula One to World Endurance Championship. Yeah, like it's still. Hypothetically, he's young enough. If he was to go to World Superbike next year, I don't know what team he would be riding on. But if he was to go to World Superbike next year, there's some big names in World Superbike. Jonathan Rea, Toprak. The new Honda boys are doing pretty well. You know, the BMW riders are pretty established too. If he was to go hypothetically into World Superbike next year and win that championship,
he would come back.
Yeah, with Toprak being kind of he's expected to make his way to MotoGP himself. So if he was able to go straight over there and dominate, then I think he would find his way back into MotoGP. However, if he was kind of just to go in there and be one of the kind of cogs in the wheel, and was just there or thereabouts, I think that could spell the end of his aspirations for
would it be a better decision for him to go back down to Moto 2?
No.
Why? Because then he would stay in the paddock, and if he was to then have another championship season, he would be in the prime spot to then make a comeback.
Because I don't think
he's already won it though, hasn't he? Like,
we've seen double Moto 2 champions.
You can stay in MotoGP if you win it. Like, that's not a problem. Zarco's done it, won it twice in a row. The interesting thing for me is if he went back down, I don't think he would be on the KTM team, and I don't think he would win the championship if he wasn't on that team.
Why is that? We have not the KTM team winning the championship at the moment. We have the Asia Honda team leading, and we have the Valentino Rossi team in a close third. Yeah, there are definitely bikes to do it.
But the reason for that is because the two best riders last year both progressed out of that team. So they've got a guy that went Moto 3 straight into Moto 2 after 1 year. So he's going to Pedro Acosta's going to take a year. We can talk about him in a second because there's even talk about him going to Honda. So
what I'm saying is if Fernandez doesn't win the championship this year, does KTM then still push him up into MotoGP?
Well, Joe, this is my new hypothesis since Gas came out with the new branding.
What, Jack Dixon?
Yeah, does that mean
because
Jake Dixon has won a couple of races this year. I don't know if he's ready for MotoGP, but if they are trying to start a Gas Academy and they want to show the progression of a rider from Moto 3 to Moto 2 to MotoGP, then Dixon would be the likely candidate, not even Fernandez.
But why is that? He wasn't in Moto 3 with Gas.
Because he's had a good enough season to make the progression, and he's gas right now.
The only reason, the reason I asked that is because I had the same thought, and my thought process was, Jake Dixon is the best sort of talent that's come out of Britain for a long time. in moto in sort of
Since
the whole.
Scott Redding?
Yeah, literally since Scott Redding. I mean, John
Maybe
McPhee hasn't done
Kent.
anything.
Danny Kent, but even Danny Kent did nothing.
Danny Kent was a world champion, but he did nothing after Moto 3. And I feel like Dorna would probably definitely want a British rider on the grid, considering they've got like 7 good ones in World Superbikes at the moment, but nothing in MotoGP. So for me, that makes sense. But the only hesitation I have is that you would then be sacrificing, I would say, a better rider in Remy Gardner for someone who's not proven in Jake Dixon. And then they'll say the argument is Jake Dixon came from British Superbikes, which are very hard bikes to ride, much closer to a MotoGP bike. And he's won races in that in a very strong sort of championship. But I would just hate to see Remy lose his seat for something like that, where it isn't really his fault.
Do you know, like, it's interesting when we talk about Remy, because I made the point last week, and I don't want to just rehash old comments, but he won a championship last year being quick and being consistent, but very much being on the best bike. And with the bike that he had, with the team that he had around him, he deserved to win the championship, but he also was expected to win the championship. If he didn't win the championship last year, he himself said that his aspirations for getting into MotoGP were pretty much done. With someone like Jake Dixon, who hasn't been on the one of the top
bike,
2 or 3 bikes in the competition, for him to get a few wins is actually something to be excited about. And we've seen people from Moto 2 who haven't been able to win a championship go up into MotoGP and still be uber competitive. I mean, exactly, that's the point I was going to make. Like, Quattro was never on the top bike in Moto 2, and everyone kind of thought that his Moto 2 career, if anything, was a bit of a underwhelming. Like, there was questions about him having the credentials to even make the move into MotoGP. So the interesting thing for me is because Dixon is still a very much an unquantified resource, because we don't actually know how good the bike is. Like, he's obviously on an Aspar team. The Aspar is always pretty good, but I wouldn't say they've been anything special since, Aleix Spargaro was with them. So there's still something about him that has an X factor, whereas Remy Gardner, we've known his Moto 2 career for the longest time, and it was kind of just up and down until he got onto the KTM. So he we might know his maximum potential at this stage. And even still, this year, it's a learning year. It's a new year. He's the best of the rookies on a bike that's underperforming, yes. But even with all of that being said, with those young riders that come into MotoGP, there's normally the eye test. You have to do
something special.
Yeah, there's normally the eye test that kind of shows the audience, hey, this guy's got what it takes. And I think even though Gardner's had a good rookie year, there's nothing about it that makes me say, I think this guy's got it. And World Superbike might be the place for him.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, to be honest. I have to agree with that. And I think what was the last thing? The last thing I wanted to bring up. What do you think about the revelation yesterday that they are adding a sprint race on Saturdays to the MotoGP Championship? So you have qualifying on Saturday morning, and then there's going to be a half-length sprint race on Saturday afternoon, and then the actual GP on Sunday. What's up, H?
I found it strange that they're doing it every race weekend.
The reason I feel like they're doing it every race weekend is because realistically, I think they're trying to draw a bigger crowd on the Saturdays and have something else for the eyeballs on the Saturdays other than qualifying, because qualifying, I think MotoGP qualifying has gotten to a stage where it's a little bit stale. And if you, I think they're taking something from their World Superbikes offering where there's 3 races, but one of them's a shorter race. And what it allows you to do is, it allows the teams who haven't got sort of the tire life preservation to sort of mix it with the best in a shorter race, because they don't have to worry about burning their tires as much. So like you can imagine if everyone's able to strap on some super softs and go half length distance, you might have a KTM in the mix a bit more, or a few more Yamahas in the mix a bit more, or even a Honda, just because the riders aren't as worried about burning that tire as much as they are sort of actually getting stuck in there, especially considering the qualifying results. The finishing result in the sprint race doesn't affect your starting position in the actual GP like it does in F1. So I feel like it's an interesting idea to offer a bit more on Saturdays.
The only, like, my biggest qualm with it, and it's probably the same as the sprint races in Formula One, right?
Yeah.
I feel like with the whole spectacle of a Grand Prix, whether it be MotoGP or Formula One, is the aura that there's nothing about it that should be gimmicky. Like, it's just the best cars, the best drivers, you qualify, you race, and there's nothing about it that throws a spanner in the works, for use of a better word. Now, the weather might do something like that, or the tires that you use might do something to that regard. But I mean, if you're going to call it Grand Prix racing, for me personally, I don't like it. I think
But do you agree that the sprint races in Formula One make you more interested for the Saturday?
No. Zero.
I love quali.
Zero.
It makes me more interested in the Friday, not the Saturday.
Formula. See, the thing. Look, we can talk about this for hours and hours, but Formula One qualifying there's the debate that it's actually more engaging for that period of time than a Formula One race. Like, there's actually a debate about that. It's like a very good formula. I think what Dorna have seen is that when World Superbikes have gone to the sprint race there and still 2 races, they've kind of seen something in that, and they kind of think like they can pick up part of that success as well. But I don't know. For me personally, I just want one Grand Prix race on the Sunday where the dogs fight for it. Because the other thing is...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I think we're lagging. I did put a question up on the Instagram page asking what people thought of it. And I had a couple of people respond saying could be a good thing for the sport because it seems that a MotoGP weekend is lacking something.
I want to see how it goes. I want to see how I enjoy watching it, because I do have my one gripe I had with MotoGP is I feel like the races are usually 3 laps too long. I feel like by the end of the race, you're sort of wanting it to wrap up. And so to see just the excitement that a half race will bring on all the tracks, I think next year will be an interesting proposition to actually watch it. And if they were to say, yeah, it doesn't really work, we'll go back to the normal formula, I probably would still like them to take off just a little bit of each race, even if it just allows the riders to not have to manage the tire wear as much, because I feel like that's becoming probably the biggest part of the racing at the moment.
The thing that has to be taken into consideration as well, particularly in a 2-wheeled sport where people fall off the bikes, is that they're already in a MotoGP season that is shorter than a lot of other racing seasons. There's already a lot of injuries, and there's already people that are missing races and that are riding wounded for a number of races a year as it is. So if you're doubling the amount of times they're racing, now granted there's still practice and qualifying and they fall off like that too, but in a race it's different. If you're doubling the chances for them to have
You're just worried about Marc Marquez, mate.
No, I'm not. But if you're doubling the chances for them to have to go balls to the wall like 36 times instead of 18 times a year, and let's say that there are more injuries because of it, well, then the product is diluted. And
that's true. But you can also look at the way that they're saying we're offering 50% more marketing value to our customers because we're giving them literally 50% more racing every year.
If that's what they've said, well, then that's the reason. It's for no other reason.
They haven't said that. They haven't said that, but I just thought of that in terms of we're giving you literally 50% more racing without adding any new rounds.
What's the point allocation for the sprint?
So it's going to be half of the MotoGP points. If you win a sprint race, it's not going to go to a GP win count. but there will be a podium for it. So like you won't, if you win a sprint race, you're not gonna it's not gonna count to your GP's one.
Yeah,
It'll be its own category.
Then that is like that in and of itself.
sounds gimmicky.
Why race? Why race if you're not going to get a win?
Yeah, but that's the same thing about
so then,
the super sport race. That the super pole races in World Superbikes.
I don't like the super pole races, Joseph. I hate them too. But if imagine you're a young rider who's been trying to like busting their ass for for however long to win a race in MotoGP, and then it's like, oh, you know what? Congratulations, you won the sprint on the Saturday, but you're still not a race winner.
If you were a young rider and you won one of the sprint races, that would probably be enough, in terms of like a boost of your talents to put yourself out there and probably give a few people who are on bikes that can't maybe last the length of the full race before they start fading, like we saw with the Aprilias yesterday, to actually have a chance at actually a bit of the spotlight.
I'm not a fan.
You are a traditionalist. I'll give you that.
Sometimes I
you know what they should actually do then? And if they want to do that, like if motorbikes want to go to a 2-race format, by all means do a 2-race format, but then do an overall like in motocross.
As in go two literal even length races.
Two shorter races, a Saturday race and a Sunday race. They both count for GPs, and then no, they won't.
Yeah,
the overall will be a GP winner.
Yeah, but I feel like that only works in motocross. Like if you had that in motorbike, someone would cross the line on the Sunday and not have the trophy. That would look a bit weird. Or you just have if you're gonna go do that, you just have two separate
thing. Yeah, you'd have to change the podiums. Yeah. Listen, you know what? MotoGP, we've been saying it for years, is the best racing category in the world because of the spectacle that it presents in that one race. So if it ain't broke, why make changes to something that is awesome as it is? No, I'm not a fan.
I'll tell you
one thing though. They said that from did you do the big MotoGP survey last year?
Who?
You.
Yeah, I did on motorsport.com.
Yeah, so their official motorsport survey, they said that it has validated the choice of doing the sprint format because that was actually what the fans who voted in the survey, that was a unanimous decision to actually have a sprint race on the Saturday. So I feel like if they have facts and stats to back it up, at least in the first year, there'll be enough people giving it a chance because it was actually the majority. I'm all for it, to be honest. Yeah, I thought it would be at least something that would spice it up a bit. I love this. I love the Super Pole races in World Superbikes because you get to see a few more bikes that can't survive the length of the race, like the BMWs actually push for wins. Like I feel like that in itself at least gives value to those brands like BMW in that, or maybe KTM if in MotoGP, that they could actually, even if they have no chance on Sunday, give them a bit of the spotlight on the Saturday to actually entice them to. It's always trying to keep brands in the sport. Just give them some shine, even if it's not an overall GP.
On that, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree.
Yep.
Moving on to the world of IndyCar boys. So, we got blessed this Sunday morning, 8:00 start. Didn't have to wake up for it. Awesome race. Kind of got a bit long in the tooth at the end because of the rain delay. But Harry, what did you make of the race, mate? Was that your first oval race that you watched live?
No, I may have watched this one last year actually.
Okay.
Because of the time, but
yeah.
Yeah, look, I was excited. I think I messaged the group chat on Saturday saying I can't wait, keen as, and then we had this massive delay, and I had to leave. Yeah, so I had to live my life. So yeah. I ended up watching the mini again, just for the second half of the race kind of thing. But
yeah,
mate, what a finish again! You know, you've
Malukas?
got Malukas on the second last lap overtaking Scotty McLaughlin to get P2. Like
if he had one more lap, he would have won the race, I reckon.
This sport, like, nothing is ever decided until like the final corner. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
What's even more insane is last week we were saying, look at Will Power and Scott Dixon right at the end of the season coming to the top, and then insert Joseph Newgarden between them now with 2 races to go.
Yeah.
There's
The championship is it's bonkers. Like you hear the comment regularly for more NASCAR than IndyCar, but how hard is it to turn left?
Yeah,
And it's kind of like you can understand why someone who hasn't watched it might say it, but the nuance of that race, the kind of the understanding how the tires go off, seeing some of the moves that one. I mean, it might have been Newgarden off one of the second or third restart where he kind of went around the outside of. Anyway,
I think he took like 4 or 5 cars in the space of 2 laps.
If you watch the first couple laps and you're looking out the back, trying to see the traffic at the back, and you'll notice Rosenquist just going outside the whole first couple laps. And I think he made up 13 positions in like 4 or 5 laps or something insane. He was up in the top 10 after starting stone cold last.
Yeah,
it was insane.
Yeah, he made up 13 in the first 2 laps or something.
Yeah, something insane like that. And then you watch some onboards and you actually see how much they're fighting the wheel, and you realize, it's not just about going left. There's a lot of sort of sliding and
because the first half of the race, it might have been 130 laps that was all green running.
Yeah.
By the first safety car, the upper banks of the track was literally no man's land. I mean, if you got stuck in that, you were going into the wall, and we saw that with Jack Harvey. It seemed like a fairly innocuous incident, but he just kind of got into the shingle, as Mark Scape likes to say, and it just kind of rode him into the wall. But
happened to McLaughlin too. I think when O'Ward took him on one of the restarts.
Yeah, it's true. But we've got two races left in the season. How much is it?
Portland and Laguna.
Portland and Laguna Seca to end the season. What is it? 16 points between the 3 of them.
Yeah, something bonkers. And I think Laguna's going to be a double points round.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's going to be massive.
Like this championship, I mean, we can't keep harping on about it, but
even like if you think about the start of that race, the top 7 cars on the grid were the top 7 cars in the championship. So we're definitely seeing sort of like that elite group now, and the teams really, they're obviously turned on and ready for qualifying. But also, like, you're seeing that the race at the front of the grid is really going to determine the result of the championship, and you'd rather that than have like some freak incident that sort of cancels one of these guys' chances of a championship, which doesn't seem to be happening. That's
the point I was going to make. At this stage, obviously, it's obvious to say, but for any of those drivers right now, a DNF and the championship's over. I mean, I can imagine being Marcus Ericsson right now. 2 weeks ago in Toronto, his car conked it with 2 laps to go. Like, imagine how he's feeling about those just that loss of points that he's recently incurred. But
who's your tip, mate?
I think Newgarden is going to take it, to be honest with you.
I can't believe he's won 5 races this year and he's still not leading the championship. Like, he's had such a up and down season.
That's right.
Newgarden has had, I think, what did he won? 2 championships, but I feel like he has always been the best racer every year. He just has races where he either crashes or disappears.
He's the Jeffrey Hurlings of IndyCar.
Yeah, that's right. So
I don't know who that is, boys.
Sorry, it's
he's the most talented MX rider probably ever, but he always injures himself.
So he never doesn't win enough championships. He's injured. So I feel like if Newgarden doesn't do anything stupid, he definitely has a big chance of winning it. The only thing is that I think Will Power and Scott Dixon are seasoned veterans at closing out these championships, especially Dixon. Like, I think Dixon's is right where he wants to be.
Yeah.
And you can sort of notice that Power and Dixon are not taking sort of half chances or risky opportunities.
Yeah.
I noticed that Will Power was letting a few people pass him this weekend.
He's like, I'm not racing you, Pato. You're added to championship. You can go. Malukas, you go race with the big boys. Scotty, go race with the big boys. I'll take my points.
The thing that is still going to be very interesting is Laguna Seca is a Ganassi track. It has been for the longest time.
Which is Dixon, right?
Which
Yeah.
is Dixon, even Palou. Like, I don't know where Palou finished in this race. Is he still within 40 points of the championship?
I think you would say he's in with a shout, but
but he needs a bit of things to fall his way.
he would
But-
need he
but
need
if
to win the
Dix-
double points and have some of those guys not finish.
If Dixon was to have a showing at Laguna Seca, which is, very much a possibility, then, I'd still put the money on him. But the real issue is right now, Penske just has all their drivers
In
On
the way.
fire.
exactly on fire. So, like, if they're all on tune, the best that Dixon's going to finish is fourth. Like, I don't think, like, his consistency this year has been admirable, but he hasn't had the pace of the Penske cars. And if they're all firing, and it seems like McLaughlin has kind of at a stage now where he's kind of on par with the rest of the stable. So there's going to be no easy, opportunities for Dixon to kind of to get out and do it, and unless he gets the help from Palou, and Palou can kind of get up there too. And I mean, obviously we've seen Christian Lundgaard in the second half of the season definitely take his racing to another level towards the end of his rookie season. But I just think that the way that Penske are going right now, everybody's on song. I just think the championship will probably come out of there, and just based purely on wins and form coming towards the end of the season, I'd have to say Newgarden might run away with it. Not run away with it, but just get ahead at the end. So
I'm still
hypothetical,
I'm
mate.
still happy on Power. Come on.
yeah,
I'm
got
hoping on
it.
Willie P.
All of
want
us
to
are
do
hoping
another
on
one.
Willie P. Yeah, I mean, would you reckon if he won it, he would retire?
Will
No.
Power. How old is he?
42.
Is he 42?
Yeah,
I feel like if Scott Dixon's going, Will Power's not going to stop.
but the thing is, Will Power is Will Power is by nature like a little bit antagonistic, and I can just imagine him winning it and being like, "F you, I'm out on top," just to kind of go out on his own
You know
terms.
what? Though I could see that happening.
And then
because
he could go race for
he's
Penske in the bloody World Endurance.
He's had so many unlucky seasons. I could definitely see him wanting to leave on top. But the
He's
thing
just
is, though,
tied Andretti as well, hasn't he? On qualifying on pole.
Yeah, like if let's say he was to take the lead of that
pole award.
pole award this year, win a championship, win another race.
Yeah, I feel like if he got the pole award, because he's always been sort of the pole lord. At least if he's not going to catch Dixon on wins. At least he'll have a bit of history himself that sort of he really deserves. So yeah, I suppose if you put it like that, I can see it happening. But I feel like he's the kind of guy that if he won it, he would actually feel like he's going to come back and do it again. Because the thing about Dixon and Will Power is it's sort of like they have the cheat codes to always being competitive, and until they're not competitive, I feel like they'll just keep doing it.
Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like Jimmy Johnson only retired when he actually wasn't good enough in NASCAR to be at the front. While you're good enough, you're going to keep doing it, unless you're Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Like, I mean, that's still the I can't think of a better way to go out, but like, there's something about it that's just like an F you
Poetic.
Poetic, but it's also just like, come and get me. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, I won, I did what I wanted to do, and no one's going to take it away from me. I'm literally like the epitome of leaving on your own terms. Like, there's nothing about it that is.
Do you reckon Lewis would have done that if he won last year? No.
You know why? No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to bring our podcast into disrepute. But before we got off the IndyCar topic, Matt Brabham just won again on the weekend.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Indy Lights, Aussie, who's kind of had a foray in IndyCar for close to 10 years now, doing a few Indy 500s, getting a shot with Pertac, doing Indy Lights, third in the championship. Is he a chance of getting into IndyCar next year, boys? Do you think?
where's he going? There's not enough seats.
Well, he's in Andretti right now, But
Who
there's
leaves Andretti? Grosjean.
no, I don't think Grosjean's leaving. That's unfortunately. No, I'm just saying, could he find his way to like this is like could you see someone like David Malukas, right? Has David Malukas could very easily find himself in a better team next year. Where
No,
I don't know where
he's signed for next year.
coin for another. Well, okay, what about Kyle Kirkwood's leaving AJ Foyt next year to go into the Andretti team? There's a seat at Foyt. Could they take a um? Could they take a risk on someone like Matt Brabham?
Yeah, but
Who's,
here's my question: has Matt Brabham shown enough that, like, if you had a seat available,
I think he's had 3 wins this year, Joe.
yeah, but like, but let me finish. Has he shown enough that if you have a seat available, you're gonna give a seat to a relatively older rookie, or if you've got someone like, I don't know, Ryan Hinchcliffe on the sideline, would you go? Do you want to come back for one more year?
No.
You think that's done? You think the older generation is going to get phased out?
Yep. There's nothing about the older generation that, like, they bring nothing to the sport that a young driver couldn't. I don't think.
Actually, you know what? You know, one team I feel like he could go into if he was to give it up, maybe Rahal, because I think Graham's sort of got to the end of his shelf life, sort of like he's reminding me of Marco Andretti at the end of his career.
Yeah.
So I feel like
just
the only way you're going to get it is if he gets a drive like that, or if at the Indy 500 he puts on a good showing, like sort of Connor Daly did a couple of years ago.
Well,
Ed Carpenter walks away.
We've seen someone like, I mean, Kyle Kirkwood was an Andretti driver in Indy Lights.
Yeah.
Needed a shot in IndyCar because he was had done everything he needed to do in the Light Series. Foyt put him up for a year before he made his way into the Andretti main game. I could see something like that happening again, because there's a maturity about him. Like I wouldn't say he's the youngest driver. Like I think he might be 24 or 25, maybe even 26, even 26. But there's a maturity about him. We've seen him in the main game before in the chances that he's got, and he's able to get a few wins. So I could see him in a lesser team, even someone like Kunkos, a team like that. But I think it would be awesome to see another Australian getting into the
ranks.
Yeah, yeah.
How did Hunter McElroy go?
I don't know.
Not sure.
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure.
I think we're a couple of years ago, if you said to me where the Australian motorsport landscape is looking pretty strong, I would have not laughed at you, but I would have been like, no chance. But you're looking at the moment, you're looking at F3 and F2. We've got some pretty strong drivers. Yep. We got, the championship leader in IndyCar is an Aussie. We've got Oscar, we've got Daniel, we've got a couple of guys in Indy Lights. Like it's looking internationally, we are looking strong, and I know there's a few in WEC as well.
Every Aussie who's on the map at the moment is in a pretty good position in terms of their championship, except Remy Gardner, unfortunately. Other than that, like wherever you look, Doohan's showing promise. The Indy Lights boys are showing promise. Will Power's in the lead. I mean, Danny Rick's in the dumps, unfortunately. But
we've got a pretty strong strike rate right now.
Yeah, we really do. Matt Campbell's racing for Porsche next year, so
everyone's kind of performing above the average, which is
knocking
awesome.
Out sixes.
We are.
We just can't get an Aussie winning the Supercars Championship. That's all.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But Will Power's a great. Cam Waters is the best Aussie on the planet, mate. Come on.
Yeah, give him an even car. He'll show you. Let's finish with a little bit of Formula One chit chat then. Season returns this week. Spa-Francorchamps, isn't it?
Yep.
I think it is. Great track. Might be the last time we're at Spa, which is an absolute travesty to even think it.
Weather forecast is rain, boys.
I'll tell you what, that's a good recipe for me. I'm a fan of a wet Spa race.
If it's a wet Spa, I'm going to say this now. George Russell.
Yeah, you know what, Joe? I was thinking the same thing as you, to be honest with you.
Of course you were. You're twins. But 2021, we had a wet race. We got one lap in.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a
an
I think that
oddball.
won't happen again.
I hope
Based
not.
on like, could you imagine 2 years of people buying tickets and not seeing a race? I don't think it would happen again. And I think the other thing we have seen this year, the 24 hours of Spa Superbike race, wet. 24 hours of Spa GT race, a little bit of it was wet. Like, you can race on that track in the wet. It's fine. Like, F1 balls up. Stop being a bunch of wusses, mate.
Man
Get out
up.
there, and you want to be the best. You want to get paid like kings. You got to race, mate.
Yeah, but it's not the drivers. The drivers want to get out there.
Some of them don't. You know who
well,
doesn't want to? You know who's
Seb.
always a bloody sook?
Seb.
They are.
About the rain.
He only complains when
rain.
someone crashes. He doesn't care about rain.
He hates the rain.
Here's my whole thing about rain.
Fuck
If you
you,
don't wanna
and
go-
your Danny Rick bias. I'm sick of
you
your
don't-
shit.
No. Here's my gripe about rain. If you don't want to race in the rain, just go slow. No one's telling you have to go as fast as the guys in front of you, right? Unless you can't see any rain lights.
But then you'll look like a bitch.
Yeah, but like we have seen drivers
This pod just got loose at the end.
we've seen drivers look like bitches in the rain for eons. Michael Schumacher made everybody look like a go-kart racer against him in the rain.
Senna was
Right.
a goat in the
Senna
rain.
in the rain as well. Like looking bad in the rain is just part of the sport, you know, and that's what makes us respect the best of the best.
It differentiates the men from the boys.
So every time we get
Fernando Alonso
rain,
in the wet.
every time we get rain,
Lance Stroll.
but the thing of rain is the great equalizer. Yeah, it's the great equalizer, and like I was saying about the sprint races in MotoGP, it's the one way where you can give everybody a relatively even chance at performing. Like we saw Latifi in the rain in the Williams, the fastest guy in what Q1. I mean, that's never happening on any other day. So for these wet sessions to keep getting cancelled, all we're doing is adding to the predictability of the sport. And every chance you finally get a bit of jeopardy, we go, oh no, it's a bit dangerous. Let's wrap these kids up in cotton wool, and wait for the sun to come out. It's like, no, you race at 3:00, you qualify at 3:00, just whatever unless it's a tsunami, let's go.
Listen, if it's like bloody Japan 2009 when
Yes, unless it's a tsunami.
Yeah, obviously there's a reason for that. But if we're talking about a couple of mil of standing water,
like Monaco this year,
if you've got those cars moving
Monaco's
around,
different though.
Yeah, Monaco. Yeah, fair enough, Monaco. But if
Monaco
you've got
shouldn't be there.
you've got a place like Spa, which has got more gravel trap right now than ever before. You've got cars going 300 kilometers an hour very quickly. That water that's on the ground is going to be cloud in the air. So get out there, get going fast. These drivers, up until they get to Formula One, have raced in horrible conditions. They have the control. They have the ability to drive these things. They aren't even the torquey monsters that they used to be in the past. So get out there and race and put on a show in the wet. Stop being a bunch of wusses.
I'm excited, but I love this track.
Me too. The best track in the world.
I'm just
Second
hoping,
best track in the world.
I'm hoping a few of the teams have done some upgrades over the break. Development stepped up, and we see some closer racing. It's not just like it was previous to the break.
The biggest, obviously, the biggest talking point will be Ferrari. We need to see.
We have to see whether they the bed.
Yeah, exactly. Have they exercised their demons? That'll be an interesting side note. I'd like to see how the battle between McLaren and Alpine continues to develop. And I think probably the thing that excites me the most, if it is a wet race, I would love to see Alex Albon be able to fight his way into a point scoring position, because I think that might be the opportunity that he needs to get the kind of respect that he deserves from the season he's had, and a wet race would probably give him the ability to kind of stop knocking on the door and actually get into that top 10. So I'd really like to see him kind of get some credit for what he's been able to do with that car this year.
Yeah, Spa quali is always great.
Wet quali too?
It does say say some rain on Saturday, but obviously this could change. It's only Monday, but yeah.
I reckon Sonoda will crash in P1, Quali 1. I reckon Magnussen will spin. I reckon Stroll will just be slow. I reckon Vettel will be slow.
Can I ask the question? If it's going to
And
be
I reckon
raining,
Ricciardo will be 16th.
if it's going to be raining,
Q1.
when has Stroll ever been slow in the rain?
No, but
Recently he has actually.
He hasn't been quick in the rain the last year and a half because he just has no confidence. That's my Q1 exodus from last to fifth last. Sonoda, Stroll, Sonoda, Magnussen, Stroll,
Latifi.
Danny Rick. No, Latifi's going to be out of Q1. He's going to get it.
Danny Rick killed
Did you
it at
kick
Spa.
out Danny Rick and leave Latifi in
I am
Q2?
so sick of his Danny Rick hate.
That's some absolute. That's.
Can we record, like, can we capture this somehow and then?
No, I'm not putting bloody your bullshit predictions.
I feel like that's a very reckless statement right there. I feel like that's a clickbait statement. It's sort of you being fed up of your team and taking it out on Danny Rick, because I can't agree with that. I can't believe you've just said Latifi, who's only got out of Q1 once in his career.
You can't just say in the last wet race Latifi was fastest in Q1 in the wet and then be like, oh, he's not going to get out of Q1.
No, I said he might. But if you're going to go off one race of what's he done now? 70.
I'll tell you why. Because the McLaren has downforce issues. So even in the wet, the McLaren doesn't perform well.
Latifi has driving fast issues, bro. I mean, come on, man. He had one moment of magic, and you're gonna he's got it. He's got it. Danny Rick's won races, for crying out loud.
Danny Rick is not the same Danny Rick, Miskeen. Oh, Miskeen. Time will tell, and we'll only wait 4 days.
Can you explain to all these non-Maltese people what Miskeen means? You ethnic?
Like poor guy. Poor guy.
He'll come good. He'll come good.
I hope so. Anyway,
he'll come good.
So that's my prediction for Q1. To be honest with you,
I agree with it all except for
Danny Rick.
You know what? Yeah.
So if I swap Danny Rick with Latifi, you would agree with it.
Who else have you got again? Sorry.
I've got Sonoda, crash. I've got Magnussen, spin. I've got Stroll, slow. Vettel, slow. Ricciardo.
Well, I feel one thing that what I'm agreeing with you is I feel like Williams do need to pick up a few more points, because everyone's talking good things about them, but realistically, their points haul is still very underwhelming. And for all the steps they're taking, they're not taking enough steps quick enough. So I would like to see a few more out of Q1s, just a bit more consistently, and just give Albon a few more tools just to sort of attack that mid pack, because he always seems to be there or thereabouts, but the car is still undercooked, and it still has a pace problem on the softer, stickier tires, which is weird in itself, and it's not helping him in terms of just getting the overall pace that he probably wants to race with the midfield.
Yeah.
And this break should have given them some time to develop the parts that they obviously need to be developing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about time.
I want from you 2 hot takes for the weekend to finish off.
I said one, Russell winning if it's wet.
Yeah, that's not a hot. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. That's a hot take. Yeah,
that's a hot take. And I'm gonna say, Leclerc loses it going through a Rouge and totals his car.
Oh
no! Really?
Well, Lando did it last year.
Let's just wait and see.
All right.
You're telling me that he hasn't had rear end stability problems this year?
Fair enough.
I'm thinking Lewis win regardless of weather. I think the Merc will.
Regardless of weather.
I reckon Max and Leclerc will have some issues, and I reckon Lewis will be next in line, take the win, and Gasly out in Q1, which I don't know if that's really a hot tip, but Gasly out in Q1.
Can you have something a bit braver?
Bit braver.
Like Alonso best of the rest or something a bit more.
That's not really that brave though, is it?
That's not even that brave as well.
Nah. All right. Danny Rick to out-qualify Lando.
You know, if you think about it,
that's a big one.
If it's a dry race, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the Ferrari engines blew because those straights be long.
I like that one, Harry.
Danny Rick to out-qualify Lando.
That would give me some optimism in life.
Oh, mate, I'll be happy if
In
he's
life,
10th.
you have a baby coming, bro. What more optimism do you need?
Motorsport is life, man. What are you talking about?
True. Okay, there's some good talk.
Imagine that they go, why are you having a baby? Oh, because McLaren's doing so badly. I need some optimism in life.
Nah, come on.
Does Joe listen to this, mate?
Only the start.
He listens to the start and the end.
Oh, no.
That's it, boys. We're going for another half hour. Hey, I think you've got a few hot takes to post up this week then before the race. We'll see if that gets any traction. But, boys, it's good that Formula One's back. MotoGP, IndyCar are giving us some thrills and spills, which is always good to see. And, you know, we'll do this again on the other side of...
Spa.
Yeah, on the other side of Spa. I'm just thinking, we don't orbit anything in a week, do we?
What?
We don't orbit. Like, the world doesn't orbit anything in a week. It does what? It does 7 rotations. So we'll do it again in 7 rotations.
What are you talking about?
Do you know how people say, like, when
See
it's
you on the
someone's
flip
birthday?
side.
No. When it's someone's birthday, they say, like, shit, like, we'll do it on, like, when the Earth's gone around the sun one more time. They say stuff like that.
I've never heard anyone
Because I
say
think
that
it takes
ever.
a year, mate, not a week.
Exactly right. It takes a year. But then I was thinking, what happens in a week? Nothing. It just rotates 7 times. So yeah, we'll go about it again in 7 rotations.
You're trying really hard to extend this podcast so Drew
I know.
can hear your comments, eh?
Go on. All right, boys.
I'm leaving. I've got Game of Thrones to watch, guys.
Thanks so
Not
much
that I
for your
didn't
time.
enjoy this.
Thanks for your time, everyone else. Thanks for listening. Like I say every week, please get in contact, ask some questions. If you would like to be on the podcast, shoot us a message. We'd be more than happy to have guests on the podcast to get some other opinions on the week in racing, or anything that you might be interested in. Like, we're a pretty inclusive bunch. We'd be more than happy to kind of hear your input and stuff like that. So please get in contact, keep liking, sharing, spreading the word, and we'll see you in a week's time.
He's still stretching it.
So thanks so much for your time, guys. Have a great night. Thanks boys.
Mate.
See you, mate.
Bye. See you, H.